people principle number 10. Now, the 10th people principle just happens to be the number 10 principle. In other words, believing the best in people usually brings the best out of people. I'm talking now about putting the number 10 on their head. Mark Twain said, "Keep away from people who try to belittle your ambitions." Small people always do that. But the really great make you feel that you too can become great. And the question I must ask myself is, do I believe the best of others? In other words, do I put a 10, this is the number 10 principle, do I put a 10 on their heads? Let me share with you 5 things I know about people. Probably 20 years ago, I was flying up to Spokane to speak at the convention center to a large group of people. And while I was on the plane, and this happens to me, not often, but sometimes, I sat down with my legal pad, and all of a sudden, I found myself beginning to write what I'm going to share. In fact, by the time I got to Spokane, I had my speech. I hadn't planned on using it as my speech. I had another one. But all of a sudden, I had one that was fresh, one that was kind of just from my heart. And it's about people and this whole number 10 principle. So there are 5 things I know about people. Number 1, everybody wants to be somebody. I know that about people. Everybody wants to be somebody. George Adams states, "There are high spots in all of our lives, and most of them have come about through the encouragement from someone else. I don't care how great, how famous or successful a man or a woman may be, each hungers for applause." When I lived in San Diego, it was just kind of a ritual of mine because it was always on the way to the gate where I would fly out to go speak somewhere that I would go by the shoe shine place. And Melvin, the shoe shine guy, was always there. And I would get my shoes shined whether they needed to be shined or not. And I would sit there as Melvin would shine my shoes, and I'd talk to him about Little League baseball. Because that's what he had done all of his life. For over 40 years, he was a Little League baseball coach. And I'd ask him about his teams and what were his best teams. And I think he had had 3 or 4 guys that he taught in Little League that went on into the majors, and I'd talk to him about that. But every time I'd leave him, I would give him a good tip, and I'd say to him, "Melvin, one of my regrets in life is that I wasn't on your Little League baseball team." He'd smile and wave to me, and sometimes he'd say, "Oh, you should have been, John. You should have been." Here's what I know. Here's what I know about Melvin. Here's what I know about you. Here's what I know about me. Everybody wants to be somebody. Number 2, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. You may try to impress people with your knowledge, but you impact people with your compassion. Number 3, everybody needs somebody. I love watching people sometimes who think they don't need anybody. Just hang around with them long enough, and you and I will get in enough trouble and deep enough weeds that we'll have to have somebody come and help us out and bail us out. And number 4, anybody that helps somebody influences a lot of bodies, because influence grows and goes by adding value to others. And number 5, somebody today will rise up and become somebody. And I can remember doing that little lesson in Spokane, and it just kind of became something that I talk about once in a while because it's all about believing in people. Now, if you have a hard time believing in people, think about this. Number 1, our disappointment in a few people should not stop us from believing in people. Too often, I find that if someone disappoints us, it causes us to pull away and stop believing in people. It's happened to me before. I can still remember my first staff hiring where I poured myself into a staff member only to have it work out real bad. Finally, I had to let him go. And I can still remember saying to myself, wow, this is not good. I gave him a lot of my time, gave him a lot of my energy, still had to let him go. I didn't like this at all. In fact, and I got close to him, and I really cared for him, and I got hurt by him. And I can still remember saying to myself, you know what? I know what I'm going to do. When I hire people from now on, I'm going to give them a job. and I'm going to have my job, and I'm not going to have a relationship with him at all. In fact, I'm going to tell him, you do your job, I'll do my job, and we'll meet at Christmas. Well, what I discovered is obvious to you already. The good news is if you don't let people close to you, they won't hurt you. The bad news is if you don't let people close to you, they won't help you either. And I began to learn very quickly that just because I had been disappointed in a relationship with someone doesn't mean that I should be disappointed with everyone. Number 2, a trusting heart is emotionally healthy. In his book, The Trusting Heart, Dr. Williams, director of Behavioral Medicine Research Center at Duke University Medical Center, writes, "Those who have a trusting heart are more likely to remain healthy throughout most of their lives and to live long. He says that such a heart believes in the basic goodness of humankind, that most people will be fair and kind in relationships with others. A soft heart," he said, "is more likely to be a healthy one." Number 3, we behave in light of our beliefs. In other words, if you don't like people or don't believe in them, you really won't be able to fake it. Have you ever had somebody try to fake belief in you? Or they just kind of, tried to pump you up when you knew that it was purely out of wrong motives, and it's just phony. You can see it, you can just smell it, you can see it and smell it coming is what you can. You don't want to go there. Number 4, a healthy marriage is built on positive expectations. Marcus Buckingham, of course, I talked about this book earlier about Now Discover Your Strengths, said the number one sign, this is amazing, the number one sign of a healthy marriage is that the spouses see each other more positively than other people do. And any time a partner esteems his or her spouse lower than outsiders do, it's a sign that there is trouble in the relationship. As I previously shared, I've done a little bit of counseling. I've done quite a bit of marriage counseling, pre-marriage counseling. And I have come to discover that the only difference between pre-marriage counseling and counseling people whose marriage is in trouble is very simple. Before they're married, they believe the best in each other. I kid you not. I mean, they'll come in there and they'll sit in the office and, you can't hardly get their attention. They're just looking at each other, And he doesn't have a job, and I'll point out, well, you don't even have financial security before he doesn't even have a job. I know, but we'll find one. We love each other, and we only have one car. I know it, but he'll take me to work and then drop me off. And in fact, I finally quit doing pre-marriage counseling because, nobody's home. You know what I'm talking about? It's just nobody's home. You just, no matter what you say, it's okay, it'll be wonderful, and yes, and I believe in him, and she's the most wonderful person. 6 months later, they're back in the office. They're married, and we got problems in River City. Do you know what the difference between pre-marriage and marriage is? Very simple. Before you get married, you believe the best in the person, and when you get married and begin to know them, you begin to focus on the worst of the person. And that is the difference. It's focus. Before marriage, you put a 10 on their heads. After marriage, you have a 1.5 on their heads. Number 5. Expressing belief in people's potential encourages them to reach their potential. It's not enough just to believe in people, to think that they are 10s. You need to express that belief. Goethe said, "Treat a man as he appears to be, and you make him worse, but treat a man as if he already were what he potentially could be, and you make him what he should be." I truly believe in this principle. Try it. I know what you're thinking already. You're saying, well, if I got to put a 10 on somebody's head, I think it's going to be probably not true because I think they're really a 2. Well, then don't put a 10 on their head. Try a 4 or a 5. Here's what I want you to do. Put a higher number on their head than you normally have. and watch it how it changes the relationship. Because you and I, when somebody believes in us, we know it. And let me tell you about belief in people and having people believe in you. Your behavior around a person that believes in you is much better than it is around a person who doesn't believe in you. You will do everything, and I will do everything in my power, never to pull down the expectations that people have in us.